name is Immanuel Kant, and this presentation is prepared for Introduction to Global Ethics, examines a contemporary case study. Is it morally acceptable to submit an assignment written entirely by AI without disclosure? This is a revised edition of my talk, and it incorporates feedbacks from peer and my instructor, including the response to classmates' question about institutional AI guidelines. Throughout, I use Immanuel Kant's three formulation of categorical imperative as the analytical lens, evaluating the duties and principles at stake rather than the consequences alone. By the end, I hope we're able to see why the ethics of concealing AI use, not the use of AI itself, is where the real question lies. Okay, let's continue to second slide. Let me frame where we are headed. The central question of this talk is straightforward but uncomfortable. It is morally acceptable to submit an assignment written entirely by AI as if it were your own. My lens throughout will be Immanuel Kant's Deontological ethics, which judges actions by duty and principle rather than by result. We will walk through Kant's three formulations in order: first, the universal law, then humanity as an end, and finally, the kingdom of ends. This revised version also adds written responses to a classmate's questions about whether universities should standardize AI guidelines. I want to stress at the outset that my goal is not to reject AI outrightly, but to examine ethics and considering its use. Let me define deontology in plain English. The word itself comes from the Greek deon, which simplified means duty. So a deontological theory is one focused on duties and moral obligations. This contrasts with Unitarianism, which asks, what brings the best result? Deontology instead asks, what is my duty, regardless of result? Now, a technical term we need is maxim. A maxim is just the principle of rule behind your actions. For example, I will submit AI work as my own to get a better grade is a maxim. Kant's central claim is that moral actions come from reason, not from what feels good or what pays off. I am drawing this overview from Matthews and Hendricks 2019, which this foundation in place. We are ready to turn to Kant's categorical imperative on the next slide. Let me read this slowly. Act only according to that maxim, whereby you can at the same time will thine should become a universal law. Two plain English gloss will help. First, a maxim is the principle of personal rule behind your action. For example, I will cut in line to save time is a maxim. Second, a universal law is a rule that could apply to everyone without creating a contradiction. Walk through the test with me. If everyone cut in line, the very concept of a line will collapse. So the maxim I will cut in line cannot be universalized. It is self-defeating. Crucially, Kant's test does not depend on predicting outcomes. It depends only on whether the principle can be universalized without contradiction. This comes from Kant's groundwork of Metaphysics of Morals, 1785, the primary source for the categorical imperative. This set up the three formulations we will apply next. Let me make this scenario concrete so share the same picture. A student uses an AI to generate an entire assignment and submit it as their own work. Three elements matter here. The work is AI generated, it is submitted as a student's own, and there is no disclosure. Notice the italic line on the slide. The ethical problem is not using AI, but hiding that use. From this single out, four ethical concerns follow. First, academic dishonesty. The work misrepresented authorship. Second, mispresentation of ability. The grade no longer reflects what the student actually knows. Third, unfair advantage over peers who did their own work. And fourth, violation of the trust that links student and educator. In the next three slides, we will apply each of Kant's formulations in turn to this scenario, and each formulation gives us different angle on why the action is morally problematic. Let me state this universality test. plain English. Could everyone do this without the practice falling apart? We'll walk through 3 steps. Step 1, the test. Imagine every student on every assignment submitted AI generated work as their own with no disclosure. Step 2, the consequence. If everyone did this, grades will become meaningless and they will measure the quality of one's AI tool, not one learning. The entire system of academic evaluation would collapse and trust between student and educator will dissolve with it. Step 3, the verdict. A maxim that destroys the very institution it depends on is self-defeating. It cannot be willed as a universal law. I am citing Kant's grand work of the Metaphysics of Morals, which was written in 1785, for this formulation. So, submitting AI without work without disclosure fails the universality test that is therefore morally wrong. We now transition to the second formulation. Kant's second formulation instructs us to treat humanity in ourselves or in others always as an end, never merely as a means. To treat someone as a means is to use them as a tool for your own purposes. To treat them as an end is to respect their inherent worth and rationality. Kant does not forbid using people as means. A bus driver drives us somewhere, but he forbids treating them merely as means. We must also respect them as rational beings with their own goals. Walk through the 3 parties in our scenario. The instructor is deceived, peers are disadvantaged without consent, and the student respect their own capacity for learning. Autonomy is the capacity for self-governed reasoning choice. Dignity is inherent worth. The action, therefore, violates dignity, autonomy on all 3 fronts. Okay, the kingdom of ends. In plain English, asks us to imagine a community where everyone is both lawmaker and citizen, and everyone makes only the laws they themselves will be willing to follow. A rule is fair only if such a community will agree to it. A Kantian university will uphold 3 values: honesty, fair assessment, and respect for achievement. Walk through why undisclosed AI submission fails. If everyone in the community hide AI use, no one could trust anyone's work and the community's shared purpose. Learning would dissolve. So, a rule permitting the undisclosed AI generator assignment could not be legislated in the kingdom of hands because it would undermine the very community it presents to serve. Let us now turn to counter arrangement. Let me still mark the pro-AI position. AI genuinely improves efficiency, helping students draft faster and explore more ideas. It can be valuable learning aid for brainstorming, summarizing, and clarifying concepts. And education should not reflexively reject new technology. We should integrate it thoughtfully. That was by Malcolm School of Business 2018. But here's the key Kantian distinction. Using AI is not the problem. Deception is. None of the 3 arguments for AI require dishonesty. A Kantian can fully endorse AI as a tool, provided its use is exclusive and the student's own rational contribution remains central. The 3 ethical uses are brainstorming, improving writing, and learning concepts. The Kantian objections targets concealment, not technology. The next slide addresses a peer question about institutional guidelines. This is one of my classmates. Her name is Delina. We raised the question: should university standardize AI guidelines or leave it to each instructor? Let me present both sides fairly. The case for standardization, universally baseline rules reduce confusion, treat all students equally, and align with the kingdom of ends. Rules everyone knows can follow. The case for instructor distinction. AI may be essential in a computer science course but problematically in a philosophical seminar. Instructors know their own learning objective. Rigid rules may stifle innovation. The Kantian resolution is hybrid. A universal baseline, disclosure is always required, comes from the categorical imperative. Since honesty is a universal duty, Within that baseline, each instructor should define which specific use of AI are permitted in their course because context matters. This respects both universal principle contextual judgment and contextual judgment. Ethical evaluation AI use. Let me walk down the table row by row. Row one, using AI as a learning assistant is acceptable because it supports the student irrational work. The student is still doing the thinking. Row two, disclosing AI assistant in submitted work is acceptable because it preserves honesty and lets the instructor access with full information. Row three, submitted AI work as your own is unethical because it violates all three formulations. It fails universality, treats people merely as means, and could not be legislated in the kingdom of ends. Disclosure is a perverted heart. It flips the moral status of the same action. The issue is not technology itself, it is dishonesty. Three principles follow from Kant's analysis. First, honesty is a duty. For Kant, truthfulness is not optional. It is what every rational being owes to every other. Second, rules must apply universally. The universality test is not about predicting consequences, but about whether the principle can be followed by everyone without self-contradiction. Third, persons deserve respect. The second formulation demands we treat people as ends, not merely as means, and that includes ourselves. The key implication follows. Academic integrity is not just a rule in syllabus, it is a shared practice built on trust. If everyone concealed AI use, that trust will collapse, and no single student can rebuild it. This is why the action matters if everyone does it. To recap, the deontological framework, duty over consequence principle over predictions, applying the categorical imperative to the scenario with a consistent verdict across all three formulations. The first violation is universality. The maxim fails because universalizing is destroy academic evaluation. The second violation is respect for humanity. The instructor, peers, and student are all treated merely as means. The third is the kingdom of hands. No rational community will endorse a rule that undermines its own shared purpose. The final verdict is clear and emphatic. The action is morally wrong, not because AI is bad, but because deception is impermissible. Okay, this is my personal reflection. The value of this exercise went beyond just gadget about one student actions. It showed how a 240-year-old framework still speaks for today's technology. Stress the continued relevance of Kant's question: could everyone do this? The same question is exactly what AI now forces us to ask in education, in workplace, and in public life, engaging with peer feedback, particularly the question about institutional guidelines. Deep, deepen my understanding of how Kantian principle can inform real policy. Thank you for your attention, and I welcome further questions. These are the references. So, yeah, again, thank you sincerely for your attention. I invite feedback. And again, thank you, Jelena, for the question about institutional guidelines, which strengthen this presentation